Kia ora koutou katoa, hello and welcome to the breakdown. The All Blacks have joined the Rugby Championship without some key players and have a new captain and a coach confirmed until the next Rugby World Cup. We also look destined to be working from home for a little while yet. Sir John Kirwan, Mills Muliaina and Chelsea Ellie. And Chelsea is the only genuine and current athlete on the crew. How's your lockdown training going?
Oh, it's not going too bad, Goldie. Keeping pretty active in my bubble. Obviously, it's pretty tough at the moment, not knowing what's happening with both the Bunnings FPC and the men's competition as well. So we're just trying to stay ready, and our team down here. But some days are pretty tough when the lockdown obviously keeps getting extended. But yeah, trying to stay positive.
We're trying to stay positive on the show as well, and that's why I'm interested straight away from you, JK. Are you a little bit intrigued about this latest version of the All Black side?
I'm offended for Mills and I that you don't think we're athletes. Like, it's a bit harsh as an opening statement. I mean, we're trying to stay positive in the bubble, and I've been eating
I'm a realist,
lot.
JK. I'm a realist.
Yeah. Good point.
We're not running any speed times right now. Plenty of speed across the Tasman, though.
What was the question?
Yeah, that's always the way. Are you intrigued by this All Black side?
Yeah, I'm excited, actually. I think it's a really good opportunity for, we're missing some serious experience and leadership, and I think that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for the other guys that are probably the next group of leaders to step into that. So I'm really excited. I wasn't expecting Ardie for no other reason than I just didn't think about it. I think it's a great choice. Looking forward to seeing him step into that role. What position he'll play, how they'll use him, how he'll cope with it. I think they're all exciting things. So it's really intriguing for me. I'm looking forward to it.
Mills, we don't know when Sam Whitelock, Aaron Smith are going across the Tasman. Dane Cole's carrying an injury. Richie Mo'unga as well after earning that 10 jersey. So for you, who's the hardest to replace for the All Blacks?
Oh, gee, great question. I think in terms of, I wouldn't so much say the hardest to actually replace. I think, Richie Mo'unga, in terms of how he's grown, obviously tried to cement that, and it was really a good opportunity for him to be able to sort of really cement that role. Obviously, a little bit of leadership. They're down in leadership in terms of, the Whitelock situation, and also Richie as well to a certain degree. So I think as a whole, it would have to come down to leadership. But this is an exciting time. It's an exciting time for this young group. It's an exciting time. They've got a new leader. The coach has been cemented, up into the Rugby World Cup. So it's a real good chance now also, for, Ian Foster's management to really start implementing some of those plans. And, what better way to do it than to go away and have, 2 or 3 different stages of this sort of massive tour, and to start off against the South Africans as well. I'm looking forward to, their involvement in the championship as well, which is always going to be pretty exciting.
Yeah, well, the Rugby Championship, of course, it has already kicked off in South Africa. They are top of the table after their 2 games that they have played against Argentina. But the big news, of course, as we cross the Tasman, was Ardie Savea is going to be named, or has been named, as the All Black captain for this early part of this tour. I had an opportunity to catch up with him a little bit early on, and I asked him, I suppose, what he thought his promotion to All Black captain said about him. Well, Ardie, congratulations as being the next All Black captain. I mean, what do you think your promotion to All Black skipper says about you as an individual?
I was quite surprised actually when I got told the news, mate. But yeah, pretty honoured and privileged to be able to be in that position and carry on a legacy that's got rich history. So a massive responsibility, but it's something to embrace and look forward to. So I'm quite excited, nervous as well, but it is what it is.
Look, we heard how emotional you got about it. For you guys as a team, it was obviously difficult knowing you're going to be away from home for a long, long time. How have the restrictions been for the initial few days in Perth?
Yeah, it hasn't been too bad actually. Just kind of getting used to not being able to, go for a walk outside or go to the dairy. So, we're just kind of trying to be creative in ways where we can keep ourselves entertained and stimulated. And, the only time we're allowed outside is when we train. we'll go to the gym. But apart from that, we're in our hotel, our space. So we're just trying to make it like we would if we were at home, and make sure the boys are able to train hard, but when they're back, be able to decompress and just relax and have fun.
You're approaching it simply week by week right now?
Yeah, definitely. We've been kind of, these last couple of days is just all about getting used to us being in this bubble, in lockdown. And then come Tuesday for a Sunday game, that's when our prep week starts.
In regards to your role as captain, are there a number of individuals and people that you will lean on specifically for support?
Yeah, we got great leaders, Beauden and Brody, who are right beside me. They're great men to be able to lean on and just chat to. And there's Perenara that's here, and we still got our brothers back at home who are there that we can lean on as well. So, and there's a whole bunch of great leaders in their natural ways in our team. So I think we're in a great position there, and it's just all about bringing collective minds together and being able to kind of come together and move forward.
Early in the season, you're always working on things. Ian Foster talked about the fact there were significant improvements in the second Bledisloe Cup. Are you getting closer to that established game plan? Are you feeling as though you've got that next step within you? And what is that next step?
Yeah, I guess it's we always want to go out and put a performance that that's All Black standard and we're proud of, and it's all about building and improving each week. And it's been quite a while since we played the last test, but we know what the Aussies are like. Especially after a loss, they're going to come out firing. So for us, it's all about just making sure we're prepared and we nail our processes and we nail our week and our preparation in order for us to be ready on Sunday. But I think for now, mate, for us, our mindset's all about getting through these next couple of days, getting used to quarantine, and then over the next day or two, that's when the mind will switch for our team, where it's time to go to work.
Look, just lastly, there's been a lot of talk off the field. Some frustrations have been aired publicly, particularly from Dave Rennie. Do you get a sense maybe that there's going to be a little bit more edge to this test match? This is by no means a dead rubber for this Wallaby side?
Yeah, no, like I mentioned, mate, there's going to be some heat. There's going to be, a lot of edge in the test match, and that's to be expected. But for us, it's just about just doing our role and just nailing it. And there'll be moments in the game that could potentially be like that. But like I say, it is what it is, and we've got to adapt to it, adjust, and live with it. So I haven't really thought about the next test match at the moment. It's just kind of been over here getting a lot of emotions and going through all that. So when it's time to come, then we'll start worrying about that.
What we do know here in New Zealand is that when you do play for the All Blacks, you leave it all out on the field. You lead by example, and there'll be no doubt you'll do that as All Black skipper. Congratulations once again, and thanks for joining us on The Breakdown.
Cheers, Goldie. Thank you.
Well, a big decision, of course, for Ian Foster naming a new All Black captain, and that's after security he was given before he left home that he was going to be coaching the All Blacks through until the next Rugby World Cup. Chelsea, given who hasn't gone to Australia, I think he'll be feeling a lot more comfortable about the fact that the deal was done and he can focus on coaching this team now.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's the most important thing for the whole group at the moment, with so much uncertainty in the world and in New Zealand rugby, and what's been happening with the whole team for the next 12 weeks. For them to have a coach locked in heading towards the next World Cup just gives them that certainty, I guess, and they can carry on doing what they're doing without too much of a shake-up. I think Ardie being captain and the boys that are supporting him over there, I think it's a great move, and I actually think there's some benefit in leaving some of our more experienced leaders and boys behind, especially just the time that we're out from the World Cup at the moment. how good is this going to be for the next lot of leaders to come through, to step up, to learn what it's like to be a leader, a top dog in amongst the group and have to lead them in such a massive tour. So yeah, I'm excited for the guys, excited for Ardie, and I would have picked Ardie. I think he's an amazing guy. I know him personally. I've spent time with him, and he's just such a good guy with great values, and I think he's going to lead the boys really well.
Fozzie as well, JK, made it very, very clear when he announced there was a couple of vice captains in Brodie Retallick and Beauden Barrett. I mean, the core of those three guys, given all their experience, I mean, they'll handle this together, won't they?
Yeah, well, that was the interesting thing for me. When I say I didn't think about Ardie, it's not that I didn't consider him good enough. It's just that I thought it'd either go to Retallick or Barrett. I don't know why. But, just seeing the growth of Ardie's been fantastic. I think the thing that I'd like to see is that it doesn't affect the way he plays, and I'm sure it won't. I'm sure he'll reach out and talk to other leaders, and we all know that the leadership is important. And I also think what Chelsea said, totally right, that there's enough leadership around, and with some of those guys not being there, it's only going to help us heading towards the World Cup. Coach has been confirmed, and then you've got a really difficult tour with new leaders. And the thing that I would want to ask you, Mills, is how do you actually switch it off? You've been named captain. How do you actually prioritize and go, well, what am I going to be like? What am I going to say? What am I going to do?
Yeah, I mean, great question, JK. I mean, when I was there, it was probably similar circumstances. I got a call. I was over in South Africa, been given this role. So what he was talking about in terms of the emotion, the initial sort of, I suppose, being told that you're a captain, but also relaying that to your family and friends, and then the realization when you go back to your room that you've actually been named as an All Black captain. Add to that all the the media responsibilities, but then sitting in front of the guys and having to talk to them, sitting with the coaches and planning out the week, all those extra sort of responsibilities to be able to then go out and sort of implement that with the team environment. And it's so important that he still brings a little bit of Ardie to it. I think if I look back at my time, as an All Black captain, particularly in that first game against France, we lost. I probably just went in with that thinking, we'll just keep to sort of Richie's style and things like that. It's important he adds that and what that sort of looks like. He would have had these last couple of days to think about that, talk to his leadership group team and sort of share that responsibility, because it's a lot different to Super Rugby. Super Rugby, you're more vocal, you're right in there because you don't necessarily have the sort of leaders that you possibly would want. In All Black, in an All Black environment, they're scattered all over the place. They come from different franchises. They've been in the All Blacks for a long time. So it's important that he gets around that group of men and sort of really establishes how the leadership works going forward on the field and also off it, and how he implements his little that Ardie sort of style to it as well. So looking forward to seeing how they go, and it's always great too to see that extra bit of motivation when you talked about the fire, because I definitely think there's going to be some fireworks given what's happened off the field, and this isn't a dead rubber, it never is, but it's just added that little bit more of a spice given what's happened last week, and when the All Blacks decided to stay home and not travel over until everything was confirmed. So looking forward to that too.
You talk about motivation, Mills. What about for Beauden Barrett, Chelsea? The fact that he is now back to his familiar position at first five. He is there to run the ship. He's been given the leadership responsibilities, and through no fault of Richie Mo'unga's, of course, staying home for family reasons. The fact that everything is going well there, I'm sure. All of a sudden, you see Beauden Barrett. He's got the ship again. Is this his big chance to reclaim the 10 jersey?
Yeah, I think it goes without saying that it definitely is. What an opportunity. He's not going to get an opportunity like this again, where he is basically the sole specialist 10 in the team. Without Aaron Smith there as well, I imagine TJ Perenara will get some game time, and we know that the combination between them two has worked well in the past. So I think for him, being able to work with Perenara, also being a vice captain, that's got to give him so much confidence. And he knows that it's not just a one game, one shot. He knows he's got a few games to work to build into the role as both the first five and the vice captain. So if there's a chance for him to grab that 10 jersey back, take it and leave it on his back all the way through to World Cup, I think this is it.
JK, do you expect to see some interesting combinations over the next 5 test matches in Australia?
Yeah, look, I think, I don't know if I totally agree. I think they're going to share this position. I think Ian Foster's come out. We're starting to understand Fozzie a wee bit more. We're starting understanding what he's trying to do. He said, I've got 2 first fives and they can fight it out. And so far he's been true to that. So I think they'll share it. Who's going to be first? Who's going to come on? What's that going to look like? You know, as a player, you always wanted to be the number 1 pick. So I think it's a great opportunity for Beauden. What are we looking for? You know, with Richie Mo'unga, we're probably now looking for that X factor, you know, moments where he creates something out of nothing. I think Beauden will see a much more structured kicking game. He has this ability also in critical moments to do something special. So I think the challenge for Beauden is it's a big moment for him. He just needs to relax into it like Ardie will. So lots to think about, lots to talk about. But once again, I repeat what Chelsea said. If we can get through to the end of the year and we've missed a couple of our leaders, you know, both first fives have stepped up and running the football team and winning test matches, man, that puts us in really good shape.
Yeah, I can't wait for it this weekend. I really can't. Of course, the fact I've got nothing else to do. All right, after the break, we're going to look well and truly back to our domestic game. There have been changes announced, or the announcement of what's happening for Super Rugby in the future, as well as what might be happening here for the FPC and the Bunnings Cup. Don't go away.
Welcome back to Breakdown. Zooming from home is our motto. Our country remains in level 4 lockdown. But from 11:59 tomorrow night, much of the country drops a level. But FPC and NPC is still affected. No games can take place. No trainings can take place until level 2. So we reached out to Head of Community Rugby, Steve Lancaster, to get some answers. What does Delta delaying the competition mean? How can we possibly fit it all in?
We're fortunate in that we've got a little bit of runway at the back end of the season, so we think we can push the season out, maybe as late as the end of November, which means that we can hopefully make up any rounds that we've lost, provided that we do come out of levels 3 and 4 relatively soon. But if not, then we'll have to look at things like midweek games to make up rounds. We would prefer not to play them. We'd rather that we stick with a weekend to weekend rotation of games. But if we need to play midweek games, then we've done it in the past and we know that we can do it again. So that's certainly on the table.
As of tomorrow, the Bombays North will be isolated from the rest of the country. So we asked Steve, does that mean the competition can continue without those 4 teams?
Playing without Auckland-based teams would be our least favoured scenario, but if we are faced with the only option being to play a competition or to play games that don't involve teams that are still at level 3 or level 4, then we will certainly look at that as well.
And that would exclude 4 teams from the men's competition: Auckland, North Harbour, Counties Manukau and Northland, plus it would wipe out half of the FPC competition. So while we wait and see what happens on the domestic front, we have news on the revised Super Rugby competition. Introducing to you Super Rugby Pacific. This is what the structure is going to look like for the next year and 2023. 12 teams in all, our 5 Kiwi teams, plus the new additions of Fiji Drua and Moana Pacifica. They're joined by the 5 Aussie sides, the Brumbies, Force, Rebels, Reds and Waratahs. The competition, it'll run for 18 weeks, so mark 18th of Feb on the calendar, and it spans right through until mid-June. That's 91 matches, with teams playing 41 regular season matches. Each team hosts 7 times. The draw will see each team play 8 teams once and 3 teams twice. Moana Pacifica and Fiji Drua will play each other twice. Now, once all the hard graft is done, we head into finals, which will look like this. The top 8 teams will take part in a 3-week playoff with quarters, semis and a final. Now check out the quarters format. Team 1 plays Team 8, 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6 and 4 plays 5. The top-ranked team gets to host. Semis will have the top-ranked quarterfinal winner host the lowest-ranked quarterfinal winner. and second highest quarters team hosts the third highest. For the final, well, you know, the top-ranked team gets to host, and why not? So, Super Rugby Pacific is locked in and ready to go. Kick off in 172 days' time. Keen to hear what Kieran Read thinks of the new Super Rugby revised format? He's up with Goldie next.
Thanks very much, Bern. Well, if we're going to talk Super Rugby, let's talk to someone who's played 13 seasons of it, 156 games for the Crusaders. Former All Black captain and, of course, key Crusader through his career. Kieran Read, thanks for joining us, mate. Look, announcement comes today about what the future of Super Rugby might look like. But before I get into that, I want to ask you what you think for a professional rugby player through 12 months in New Zealand, what's a realistic number of games if you're going to play Super and All Black rugby together?
Yeah, look, I think if you put together both seasons, it's probably just over 30 games, which, is probably right on the limit, for someone to be playing 80 minutes of every of those games. And probably nowadays it doesn't happen that often, but I certainly wouldn't want to be going more than 30 games a season, I don't think.
The Super Rugby Pacific has been announced in the inclusion of the Fijian Drua and, of course, Moana Pacifica. Fijian team going to be based out of Australia. Moana Pacifica based in Auckland at this stage. You look at this competition, but first and foremost, what do you think motivates a player? What motivated you in and around Super Rugby?
I think this will be motivating for the guys. Having something different. Going up against each other the last couple of years hasn't been the same. It's the sameness, isn't it? Doing it every week, and it can get a little bit challenging. So I think the guys will enjoy this format. I know for me growing up, and a lot of the young guys coming in, there was that whole chance to travel. You make your Super Rugby team. There was a trip to South Africa throughout the season. You're always willing to go on, and having those little moments of being away as a travelling group and getting tighter as a team is always fun to have. And I know those guys still miss that now that it's probably drifted away from that a little bit.
Look, New Zealand Rugby have obviously got what they wanted. They were looking at this competition and they wanted the 12 teams. They've brought they've brought teams in. In the past, though, we've seen expansions. You've been through that, the introduction of the Sunwolves, the Jaguares. Is that something, though, in the next couple of years that they maybe need to consider? JK's talked a lot about this playoff scenario. Is that something that you think might be important to look at after a Super Rugby campaign, and can it be fitted into the schedule?
Yeah, personally, I look at it and go, maybe they've got a certain number of weeks they have to fill, and they are just filling it at the moment, which I think isn't the right way of doing it. It's making those games meaningful, which is the most important thing. I knew travelling to South Africa, didn't matter who you're playing, even if it was against a team that was near the bottom of the ladder. Playing in South Africa was a challenge, and you always had to be on your game, and it was something that was great for a young player to go through. So little things like that, I think whether that will happen again, I'm not sure, but I think we've certainly got to explore those opportunities to play meaningful games and not just playing games for the sake of it, and then hopefully having that opportunity to put the best teams together. And I think if the Japanese can keep moving forward like they've shown over the last couple of years, the Pacific Island nations, I think, are going to grow. So it's exciting.
I mean, was that something that would appeal to you when you played your last couple of seasons up in Japan? You saw the growth of their game. Do you think that's really important for us to maybe avoid that feeling of getting that little bit insular? And another side thing is the fact that, are we really now expecting Australia to have to step up significantly from where they were maybe this season?
I think if you look across the board in the competition next year, you're going to probably look at a 90%, 80% win record for New Zealand teams, and that's not great for the competition. It's not going to be great for the guys playing the games. So we do need Australia to step up and hopefully improve their performances. In regards to Japan, I believe they need to play their own competition. It needs to be as successful as it can up there, and then take the best two or three potentially teams who can compete in some way or form against the Aussie teams, or maybe the second half of the Super Rugby competition, and throw in a United States team or something like that to play in the second level down, and the top teams can then carry on.
So in regards to that, same thing, Australia have made that decision across the Tasman to start exploring bringing in players to their national side that are playing overseas. This is something in New Zealand we've protected for so long. Is that something that you think we should continue to protect, the fact that playing in New Zealand is paramount to you being an All Black?
Yeah, I think we should. I think that's, definitely still right now at way we live in. I think, All Blacks should be playing in New Zealand and trying to make our teams as strong as they can be. And I think, it's showing the South African Super Rugby sides, just aren't what they were, a few years ago. And, this kind of spells, hopefully the Australians aren't going to go the same way, but, you'll need them to be strong. So, I feel it's important to be playing in New Zealand if you wanted to be an All Black. And, at the moment, it's still going to, there's enough monetary value here for those guys to be rewarded. And then, if you want to make your, hay while the sun shines at the back end of your career, then go for it.
Lastly, we'll talk across the Tasman because there's a delayed test match coming up this weekend. What have you made of the All Blacks in 2021 and the naming of Ardie Savea as captain for this early part of the end of season campaign?
Oh, really exciting for Ardie. Yep. Been in touch with him, and he's pretty excited himself, and looking forward to getting out there with the boys. So I think this All Black team this year has been chalk and cheese to last year. You can kind of see how motivated they are this year and wanting to do well, and it's shown in their performances. And I can't wait for them to get into the South Africans. I think that's going to be an exciting couple of games. Obviously, would have liked them to be here in front of our home crowd, but I'm sure they're going to be just as well anticipated as they should be.
You like our chances?
I do, actually. Yeah, I do. I think in a bit of the heat in the Aussie and dry ball, I think we should go pretty good.
Thanks, Kieran. As always, great to get your views here on the breakdown and with Sky. Hope lockdown's going well for you. You might see a little bit more freedom coming up pretty soon, but as always, great to catch up. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, Goldie.
JK, we've talked so much about Super Rugby. Super Rugby Pacific has been announced. You've heard the thoughts of Kieran Read. What do you make of the structure, where they're going over the next couple of years?
Well, I actually really like it, Goldie. I think it's a step in the right direction. I've always been a little bit critical of, the top of their conference getting a home game. I like this. It's a little bit simpler. I agree with Kieran, possibly adding those games so that you can get more home games for the franchises might, bite them a little bit. I guess they're looking to get home games for crowds, but I like it. I like the simpleness of it, so bring it on.
Mills, I just want to ask you that in terms of the structure and the simple nature and the fact for Moana Pacifica and the Fijian Drua, where they're going to be based these next couple of years, given what we've been facing with COVID right now, is this a way of us transitioning through to what might come next?
I definitely think so. I agree with JK and obviously, Read and what they've sort of said. It's a breath of fresh air. It's probably a nice way to for the Drua and also Moana Pacifica, to get themselves, into this competition as well, having to play each other twice. Still a little bit of uncertainty on where the Drua is going to be based, but I suppose it's been like that for them for the last year or so anyway. So in terms of that, they've obviously adapted. Basing themselves in Aussie seems to be the more sort of common sense approach to it. But love the idea, love the format. Looking forward to this new competition.
Chelsea, the thing I love about it the most is probably the playoff system. It's certainly cutthroat when you start talking one playing out, 8 and the top 4 getting a home quarterfinals. This is a natural way for any competition to go, but do you think this keeps teams well and truly more interested in this competition for longer?
Yeah, I do. I think it's almost taking the league approach, right? Like that's what league's been doing for years. And if you are one of those teams that are borderline making that top 8, you're obviously going to keep fighting for longer. And I think it's going to make for more interesting games for the whole of the season because all the teams are going to constantly be fighting for top 8. And even if you are at the bottom of that, you've got a chance to win the tournament, which is exciting. So I agree with JK and Mills as well. It's refreshing to have the Moana Pacifica and Fiji teams in. Everyone wants to see those teams play. And I think that first game against with those teams against each other, is going to be such an exciting event. Very refreshing, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
I wouldn't mind all of you commenting on this. Is the expectations now of the Australian teams? They've stood fast. They said they want their 5 sides. They talked about the fact this is what we need to do and keep going forward. We saw once again how they struggled against the New Zealand teams. Everyone's talking about the Drua and Moana Pacifica maybe having their challenges. JK, is it time for Australian rugby to find a way for their franchises to be stronger and step up, because this is a long competition? Depth will be tested.
Well, I don't know how you do that, Goldie. You just don't invent depth. Depth can take a decade. And I think the problem with Australian rugby at the moment is they've said you can be selected for the Wallabies by playing overseas. So it's a contrast to them wanting their 5 sides. I hope for them that their depth is growing, but you just can't invent that. And I think they need to be competitive, and it's not going to be easy. Someone on the fringes goes, I've just made the Wallabies. I've got a big deal in Japan. I'll be selected. I'll go, and that's going to hurt Super Rugby. I always remember David Longy saying, we need to stand on our shores and embrace our neighbours, and that's Asia and Pacific. And sometimes we look to the Northern Hemisphere as our neighbours, France, England. I really want to see this Asian competition, a team in Hong Kong, a team in Los Angeles. The Dura and the Pacifica teams are awesome. But let's build this out into a really neat competition at the end of Super Rugby. Maybe post-COVID, shorten Super, and then have this Asian Cup competition where we start growing teams across Asia. And that money, I believe, the pool of that money should go to the individual franchises, and they should be able to start building a business rather than losing money every year.
Chelsea, did you know who David Longy was?
I don't, sorry. Why do you always have to call me
I knew
out
that
on
would be the case. I thought the only one that could talk to it was probably you, JK. Look, I'm fascinated as always. It's just great to see, though, something announced. I'm looking forward to seeing more details coming out about Super Rugby Pacific going forward. Look, we have continued this debate around the greatest All Black 15. It continues after the break. Don't go away.
Last week, we looked at the greatest All Blacks midfield, and the expert panel of Phil Gifford, Ken Laban, Ricky Swinell and myself went with Ma'anonu at second 5 and Bruce Robertson at centre. You, the public, agreed with us at second 5, but you went with two-time World Cup winner Conrad Smith at centre. Well, to break the impasse, we chatted with Sir Graham Henry, and he agrees with you. So, the greatest All Blacks midfield is Ma'anonu and Conrad Smith.
Got his pass off beautifully. Now Nonu up the middle. Ma'anonu. Can he make it? He's going to make it.
He will go down as one of our most amazing All Blacks. Could do the things that Jonah did, as well as Cully. Great step, and developed a pass and a kick like no other.
He always gave everything for the jersey. It was about the team being successful and what he could do to help. And the other thing I really liked is he didn't just toe the line. He'd speak up about things he didn't agree with or he thought would contribute to help the team. And because of his actions, people respected that.
As Carter sends it on to Nonu. He in turn finds Dag into a bit of a gap. Pops it over the top for Read. Jane is there. Read ignored him, but he gave it to Nonu. And Martin Nonu scores.
Not getting in that 07 team hurt him. He went away and worked on his game, and his passing got better, his kicking got better, his fitness got better, which allowed him to do the things that we needed him to do more often. And there was just a real drive to want to be in the All Blacks. And if you've got the real drive, then you get to use it every day, and it's not a spasmodic thing, it's something that's consistent. He became a more consistent player.
Off it goes to Carter. Good burst here by Nonu. And he's done it.
He was a block-busting winger, outside back, that if given the ball he could make things happen. Yet that's all he was seen as, and he was very good at it. Then he had a couple of setbacks, and he showed that, yeah, that's not going to define. I don't want to finish my career like that. And he developed into the world's best midfielder, as a 12. He developed a passing game, a kicking game, a great knowledge defensively of strategy. And, you saw his combination with both Dan and Conrad Smith, and what they've been able to achieve in terms of, winning World Cups.
There's a group of guys that easy to name straight away, the ones that you wanted to play alongside because you could trust them.
Quick hands for Smith. Conrad Smith running great lines. Smith, he's got support. He'll do it himself. Conrad Smith, what a try.
He's the ultimate competitor, is what I've learned from watching Conrad.
I used to yellow card Conrad Smith at touch. Training, he was that competitive. It's how they are. They hate losing. More than that, they hate letting themselves down, they hate letting the team down.
Now it's better away for Collins. Quick hands to Smith. Smith gliding. Smith. Hard man to put away, and Conrad Smith scores for the All Blacks.
When he started, he wasn't that big for a centre, at that time. But man, by the end, his impact, because of the way he understood the game, and defensively, even if he's against bigger fellas, he knew where to be, how to work with others to ensure that there was no gaps, all those sort of things, and knew the right options to take. I think that's what set him apart from most others.
Carter puts the little kick in. Here come the chasers. And Conrad Smith gets the opening try.
Again, his courage is really what sets him apart. You add to that his quickness of thought. He might not have been the fastest player, but he was very smart around understanding that strategic part of the game and knowing where to be at the right time and seeing plays unfold and where the best position to be in to support, make a tackle, get the ball back. Again, his growth in all that area. I think that's what sets him apart from a lot of other midfielders.
He had the ability to make people look good around him as well, and the way he directed and led a backline was really remarkable, and probably doesn't get enough kudos for the impact he had.
The 2015 World Cup, what a wonderful trio of midfielders we had. All had little differences in their game, but combined well with each other.
Just from a leadership point of view, he was brilliant in terms of helping our team, with how we were going, but also how he helped people around him.
Sir Graham Henry plays tiebreaker and gives it to Conrad Smith. Nonu, Mills, you played in the All Black midfield. Chelsea will come to you in a minute as well as an international midfielder, but between these two, look, the recency bias we knew about, but you can't argue with their performances in the All Black jersey, particularly through the 2000s.
No, definitely not. And they sort of formed a really fierce sort of combination, two contrasting styles. Really, you had, Ma'a, who would truck things up and was really robust in terms of that. Snaky, he was a really real distributor with a bit of gas. But yeah, you're right. Bruce Robinson, he was an outstanding, centre as well. But when I look back to my time with these guys, particularly, it took them a while to sort of understand each other, and thankfully enough, they had that with the Hurricanes, and then they've just formed a really, really nice combination. So, I suppose in my eyes, well deserved.
Chelsea, Conrad Smith. I want to ask you about Conrad Smith, or the fact that when I watched him play, it was just he appeared to be one of the smartest rugby players on the field and sneaky quick.
Yeah, he was. I mean, I'm probably a little bit biased with my favourite midfield All Blacks simply because of my age, and I've seen those two play in the midfield for most of my life. So growing up, Nonu was my favourite All Black because he started out quite one-dimensional, but as his career went on, he grew to be such a great All Black with many different attributes. So he's always been a legend in my eyes. And yeah, like you said, Conrad Smith, he's a master. He's so, I love watching him play because he doesn't actually have that much razzle as a lot of centres do, but he had the ability to just get on the outside of players and he had such a great awareness of where his outsides were and where his support players were, that he could get on the outside and put others in space. So, yeah, I love that midfield combo. Exciting, and 100% agree with it.
JK, though, Bruce Robinson was a special and unique player. And look, you know, I only saw footage of him, but you talk to anybody, and our experts always agreed as well, the fact that there was something special about him. And he would have been a player that, no doubt with his skill set, surely would have transcended the eras.
Yeah, not that dissimilar to Conrad Smith. You know, really, he used to glide through gaps, and one of the first centres to hold the ball in both hands. Just a beautiful distributor. I think probably what got Ma'a and Conrad across the line was the combination. I love the combination. I love both those players. I think I think both Conrad and Ma'a were outstanding. Two different styles.
When you look at some great players, and you look at players that have been hard to replace, and we've been on that constant search for someone to step into that 13 jersey, and that's, I think, a mark to how great Conrad Smith was, how reliable and efficient and great defensively he was, because that is one of the hardest positions to play. Well, there was plenty of debate in and around the midfield, particularly centre. When you think about the number of tries that have been scored on the outside for the All Blacks, the wings and fullbacks discussion is going to be heated. I'm looking forward to seeing what our panel thinks of our contestants for this hotly contested position.
This week on New Zealand's Greatest 15, we're picking the outside backs. I'm Grant Nisbet, and I'm joined by veteran rugby journalist Phil Gifford and Sky Sport commentators Ricky Swinell and Ken Laban. The contenders for the Greatest All Blacks left wing are Jonah Lomu, Ron Jardine, Joe Rokithoko and Julian Savea.
In the end, if there's one rugby player in all of our lifetimes that I think his name worldwide has dominated the sport, even more than Richie McCaw, there's no part of the world virtually that you can go to, even today. If somebody's heard of rugby, they've heard of Jonah Lomu, and that's for a very, very good reason. To me, in 1995, Jonah was to rugby what Muhammad Ali was to boxing, in that he transcended the sport. He took the sport into areas and made people interested in it that no other rugby player has done before and no rugby player has done since.
Because it's an old cliche, isn't it? No player is bigger than the game. We've said that right through the ages, haven't we?
Too right.
I think he's an exception.
Yeah, I totally agree. Just as Ali was an exception with boxing. He was bigger than boxing. We were so lucky in that he was a fantastic person to be a superstar. Because some superstars, as we know, in all areas, whether it's music or sport, turn into jerks. And he never did.
I think we should probably acknowledge the contribution of Joe Rokithoko and Sisaveni Silivavatu in Fiji rugby. You used the word transcend, and that is what Jonah Lomu did. He transcended the sport like no rugby player has and maybe ever will. We've got a lot of superstar athletes in the game now with big profiles, big endorsements, but he was on a whole different level. He bounced back from that young guy who struggled. He had to live his life in public as a quite a shy young guy early on, and perhaps we may never know really the full extent of his abilities. If he hadn't been ill towards the end of his career, what he really could have done. I mean, it would blow your mind. I think we're all blessed to have been. I say, players that I didn't get to see, like a Colin Meads or Sir Brian Lahora, and kids now will never have got to have seen Jonah play, and that's a great shame for them.
Yeah, it is. His impact on the game is, it's indisputable, really, isn't it? So there we are. I think we've said it all. We're all agreed. Our contender for the greatest All Black at left wing, indisputably, Jonah Lomu.
Out towards Lomu. And he's done it again.
Our greatest 15 shortlist for right wing is John Kerwin, Doug Howlett, Jeff Wilson and Brian Williams. Ken, tough one to pick.
It is a very hard one to pick. Are we just going to talk about how good you were with the ball on the right wing? Or are we going to talk about your impact on the game and on the course of the game's history? 1970, a young Auckland Pacific Island player and a law student who was doing his studies out of Auckland University called Brian George Williams, was forced to tour South Africa, along with 3 other players who was declared an honorary white. In some ways, it's a disgrace. He became a beacon of hope. He became a beacon for fairness, for justice, and for equality. It wasn't his intention, as I've said, but nonetheless, that's what he was. He was so high profile, he was so good, there was so much attention on him, and JK and I have talked about it before on there, that unbelievable sidestep in the in-goal area to get that try down into the post. But in terms of the impact and changing the course of the history of our game, for me, Brian Williams, the greatest right wing the game has seen.
Phil.
Right. Well, I was incredibly lucky to be able to watch BG play from the time he was a 16-year-old kid when he started playing senior rugby for Ponsonby right through. And then I was also consider myself to have been blessed by the fact that I was able to watch John Kirwan start out as an 18-year-old plucked from the under-21 team by John Hart to play for Auckland. Both of them, I think, and Jeff Wilson as well, an amazing football player too. But in the end, for me, as great as Jeff was, it comes down to me to be a choice between John Kirwan and BG, Brian Williams, because it was so impossible. This is the only selection I've made where I have literally just tossed a coin between the two of them. Before we came in here today, I tossed a coin. And it was heads BG, tails, well, they're both knights. Heads Sir Brian Williams, tails Sir John Kirwan. The coin toss came down for BG, so my vote's going to BG.
I think there's very few naturally gifted athletes that we have seen like Jeff Wilson. And I sometimes would wonder if he had been fit and fully healthy in '95, does that World Cup final become a different outcome? We'll never know, it's hypothetical. A dual international, which is now unfathomable, to have been playing at the highest level of 2 sports and 2 high-profile international sports, and as I say, a naturally gifted athlete. There are reasons outside of rugby that both Brian Williams and John Kirwan have Sir in front of their name, but in terms of picking a winger, I'm going to go Jeff Wilson.
Fair enough. He was quite a child prodigy, wasn't he? His performance at the '96, when we were in South Africa, and some of those tries that he scored. Now, I found this the hardest position to pick, because I agree with everything you guys say. But if I have to put hand on heart, I would have to say on my right wing, I've got Jeff Wilson.
Wow.
Oh.
Yeah.
I must have a split.
So we're split again.
Yeah.
Split.
Yeah.
We've decided we're going to split our vote between Jeff, yes, you, Jeff, and Brian Williams.
And I think he lost the ball also. Turned it over, Marshall. Now there's a chance for Jeff Wilson. He's the fastest of this lot. Wilson leads the charge, and Wilson scores.
The contenders for greatest All Blacks fullback are George Napier, Bob Scott, Christian Cullen and Nils Muliaina.
So many great players there, but I've got to say, for me, the guy that every time he played, I just couldn't. I was watching for him all the time to watch him do something fabulous, and in every game he basically did, and that's Christian Cullen. So for me, out of all those amazing fullbacks, my vote goes to Christian Cullen.
Total no-brainer. Christian Cullen for me. I think when we were talking earlier about different positions, we talked about Beauden Barrett, and when he gets the ball, you go like this. When Christian Cullen got the ball, the crowd would rise as one. You just did not know what he was going to do. And he didn't run, he glided. Glided through defences.
Ken?
He would be close to the greatest All Black we've ever had.
Yep.
I'm often asked to the greatest All Black that I've ever seen, and I say Christian Cullen. I've had to defend myself a few times and justify myself, but I believe I can, because you're absolutely right. He could do it all, absolutely do it all. And all the attributes you mentioned, and the ability to show up and sniff out a try was just absolutely amazing. Now, it's a great list. It really is a great list. But to me, Christian Cullen for sure.
Heck of a list, though, too. I mean, Ben Smith, I don't think we realised how good he was until he was almost gone. He was so understated. Mills Molina, what Mills played something like... Started,
100 tests.
He played over... And he started 85 or 86 or something. And we've always been so competitive in the outside backs, and fullbacks we've seen get chopped and changed and moved to different positions. And so those are all incredible feats. And so I guess that also says just how good Christian Cullen was, that he can stand so clearly above that list in all of our minds.
We are agreed. Our contender for greatest All Black fullback is Christian Cullen.
Zinzan Brook with a distinctive call. His ball, and he gets it clearly. It finds Cullen with a beautiful pass. Now they're lining up to score this one. Cullen might do it himself. Yes, he will. Superb.
Well, that's not awkward, is it? All right. You got to go to the Sky Sport Facebook page to vote. Chelsea, do we need to start recruiting your followers on Facebook? Because I think the three of us have got nothing.
Yeah, I'm not sure who to put a shout out to out of all of you. As I said, I'd put my address up, and if I get some of Goldie's home brew that he's been making, or some JK14 wine perhaps, I'll do an extra shout out for you guys.
Mills, what are you offering?
How many dozen you want, Chelsea?
Hey. Mills, what have you got?
Since she's putting that up, mate, I'm going to sign up to Facebook now and try and get as many followers as I can to vote. So I'll be putting my address up too for you guys.
No, look, it's a privilege to be a part of the discussion. As always, we'll see what happens in 7 days' time. Let's focus just quickly. This weekend, it's at Perth. Last time we were there a couple of years ago, the Wallabies trounced the All Blacks. Mills, can you see in any way that happening again?
Oh, I can't see it, and I think this added a bit of spice to it, and given what's happened off the field, it's just added that little bit of edge about the test as well. The last couple of tests that they've played in New Zealand, it's been close at the start. The Wallabies will obviously want to, come back after that performance at Eden Park, but I can't see them, blowing out and winning like they did last year. The Wallabies, this is. I think it's going to be a really good test. It's a good opportunity for the All Blacks to establish some leaderships, to establish some depth as well. Some of the young guys that they've taken over, but also where the Wallabies are at in terms of I suppose pushing on this third game, because they've been really good in these first two test matches, and I just hope that they come out firing and be a little bit more clinical at the end of the game.
Chelsea, for you, Dave Rooney, will have this Wallabies team well and truly fired up?
Yeah, I think so. I was actually at the last game that they played in Perth at Optus Stadium. That was the last time the Black Ferns played. So I watched Australia give the All Blacks a pretty good hiding in that game, actually. And I think you can't underestimate a home advantage. While I still think the All Blacks will get up, especially in that last 20 again, I think, the home advantage for the Wallabies will give them that extra bit of boost. So they'll definitely be up for it, especially with everything that's been happening in the media, that extra bit of edge. They won at this stadium the last time they played there. So things are stacking up well for the Aussies. But again, I think the All Blacks are too good.
And JK, for you, how do you see it playing out? Do you see Beauden Barrett maybe making a mark in the 10 jersey?
Well, Ardie Savea talked about moments, and the moment at the last test match was Ardie actually getting sent off, yellow card, and then Whitelock stepping up, Aaron Smith stepping up, them slowing the game down, Mwanga playing outstandingly, and those three aren't there. So I reckon there's going to be a real test if there are those moments for this young leadership crew. Keep their head, keep the pressure on. If they can do that, I think we'll be. I don't think it'll be a big score this time, because I agree with Mills and Chelsea. Perth, different, been in lockdown. There's lots of things mentally they have to deal with. But I think if we can win those moments from a leadership point of view, we'll get rid of the Australians for the Bledisloe and the championship, and we're done.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I think it is important for me is for Ian Foster, as his being confirmed through to the next Rugby World Cup, his first up game in this scenario, I think it needs to be impressive, and I think it will be. As always, great to be with you. I can't wait for next week. We've got Sir Bill Beaumont from World Rugby on the show to talk about the shape of the game. Can't wait for that. Thanks, Mills. Thanks, JK. Thanks, Chelsea. Have a great week training, Chelsea. We'll do our very best to be in tip-top shape for you next week. On behalf of everyone here on The Breakdown, Pomare, and we'll see you next week.